In this video, we are going to uncover the mystery of cheaper oil but the same prices. Imagine this. It is early 2022, the war in Ukraine has begun, the West is refusing Russian oil, ships are rerouted, sanctions debates rage, and India sees an unusual opportunity. Tankers full of Russian crude, once destined for Europe, now come sailing towards Gujarat and Tamil Nadu ports of India. India's refiners buy them at prices far below what the world benchmark Brent crude is selling for. At one point, discounts were $30 per barrel, a huge saving. By 2023, Russia has even overtaken Iraq and Saudi Arabia to become India's biggest crude supplier. So, here is the puzzle. If India is buying its crude cheaper, why didn't ordinary people see petrol, diesel, or LPG prices falling significantly at the pump? Let's go to the tax puzzle. Stand at an Indian petrol pump and check your bill. More than half of what you pay on petrol is actually tax. Central government excise plus state government's value added tax. On diesel, the share is a bit lower but still massive. This means that even if crude oil prices fall, the drop does not show clearly because the final price is already made up largely of taxes. Economists call this the tax wedge. The government, not the consumer, can soak up the benefits. So the first part of the mystery is solved. Lower crude prices do not automatically translate into cheaper petrol or diesel because taxes dominate the bill. So, where did the savings go? Now comes the second part. If refiners are buying oil cheaper, yet retail prices remain the same, someone must be gaining. So, the winners have been the refiners themselves and the government coffers. At a time when the government was managing deficit pressures and welfare schemes, this extra buffer mattered. So, consumers did not see much relief. Instead, refiners and the state exchequer benefited. But it is not that simple. Now, we must add nuance. Buying Russian crude was not a pure profit. The reasons which we can highlight are the three. First, transport and insurance. Shipping oil halfway across the globe is more expensive when we compare it buying from Saudi Arabia or Iraq, which has a shorter distance as compared to importing it from Russia, which is all the way really far from where the India is. Plus, sanctions also made the insurance costlier. The second is the quality issues. Russian Urals are heavier with more sulfur content than what Brent has. Many Indian refineries can handle it, but blending costs exist. The third reason is the global politics. India used some of the discounted oil to strengthen its strategic reserves or fund energy diversification instead of passing on benefits directly. Remember, increasing the strategic reserves or petrol and diesels can be one of the reasons which can defend why the prices were not lowered for the common public. So every time the people will ask, are there enough reserves increased significantly across the last 3 years, which can help us at the time of sanctions or any other emergencies which may come upon our country. Also, the huge early discounts gradually shrank. By 2024, discounted Russian crude was often only $5 cheaper than Brent, much smaller than in 2022. So, even though headlines shouted India buys cheap, the actual net savings were more modest. The next question is, should prices have been cut? This debate has two sides to it. We will start with the arguments for cutting the prices. So, if the prices would have been cut, there would have been relief for households and firms by lowering costs of transport and goods. Second, it would have also resulted into the less inflation, which would be good for the Reserve Bank as well as for the economy. And third would be fairness, which in my personal opinion, would be would have mattered that even if you don't lower the costs to an extent, there could have been a symbolic gesture from the side of government that if refiners and the state enjoy a windfall gain, shouldn't citizens share it? I'm not saying that citizens should have got like a lot of benefit from it, but even a small chunk of it, which could have been a symbolic, so that the citizens feel that yes, of course, we are also the part of the system where any benefit that our country gets is shared among everyone, be it the corporates, be it the government, or be it the common citizens. Going to the arguments which are against the cuts of the final prices. Cutting taxes means losing government revenue, money which funds roads, subsidies, welfare, and deficit reduction. Also, cutting the rates would benefit richer households more from cheap petrol since they drive more, so it could be regressive. Third, if discounts were temporary, cutting rates permanently would be risky because there is always a kind of recency bias. If the prices are cut right now, the common people will be really, really happy. They will praise the government as well. But the next time when these temporary benefits are eliminated from the market and the prices are again revised to what they are now, it would feel like a huge burden on the part of the people, and there will come a lot of criticism. So the government chose another path: keep retail pump prices stable, use the buffer for fiscal management, and indirectly support welfare and investment. In the end, the story of cheap Russian oil, same petrol price is not just about missed benefits, it is about trade offs. Consumers did not see a drop in pump prices, but the government bought time, more fiscal space, lower subsidies elsewhere, strategic diversification of energy supplies. Economists can argue whether this was fair or optimal, but the lesson is clear. In India, petrol prices are less about crude oil barrels and more about tax policy and fiscal politics. Perhaps the simplest solution for transparency would be for the government to publish clear numbers of how much Russian crude oil was bought, at what landed prices, and how much went to taxes, refinery profits, or strategic reserves. Only then can citizens truly see whether the rains of cheap Russian oil watered the public's fields or only filled the government's tanks. And before concluding this video, I, as a common citizen of this country, would request everyone to look for the CAG reports. You should look for the government spendings. Like whenever the budgets come in February and March, we stay excited, like what all the things will be, where the money would be spent. But the problem is whether it is actually spent or not is only reflected after this 6 or 12 months of period. So rather than getting excited for the next budget where the budgets will be allocated, rather we should ask where the budgets were spent in the last year. And the government releases that data as well. So as a aware citizen, maybe we should look for those data where the budgets were actually spent rather than where the budgets will be spent.